Welcome to a presentation of Hive80, the #1 online community for health, wellness, and medicine. The following is a part of our Hive Partner Series, highlighting experts from across the wellness spectrum.
Hello everyone, and welcome again to our third cooking therapy session. I'm Debra Borden, your Sue therapist, and I dressed up a little bit today. The first reason is we're taping this on Mother's Day, so I thought it was a little special, and I was feeling a little springy. But also, believe it or not, today we're going to tackle, even though we'll have fun, a slightly more serious issue. We're going to be talking about sadness and loneliness and even clinical depression. You know, in these crazy quarantine days, it's difficult enough for people who are struggling with true depression, but on a holiday it can be even more difficult. So that's another reason that we'll be doing a main course. If you've seen the other videos, you know we've done a side dish and you know we've done a dessert. But if you're someone who's struggling with depression, you know that it's no side dish and it's certainly no dessert. So today we're going to be making a fish dish that I've named Tough Times Tilapia. So this is kind of funny because I actually don't really like tilapia, and yet I think in a way that's kind of perfect because nobody likes to be sad, nobody likes to be lonely, certainly nobody likes to have a mental health issue. And so why not work with a dish that maybe we can transform from something we really don't like into something a little bit lighter. And as we know, if we've been listening to the news, we are all dealing with a mental health and substance abuse tsunami, as they say. And especially for kids, not just adults. So if you're home alone or with a family, you know this is really tough for kids of all ages. It's quite a developmental time for them, and often socialization is really a key to learning. So I think everybody's going through a tough time. And in a way, if you've worked with clients who have been experiencing depression, they will say they want to feel normal again. And yet, isn't it interesting that almost everyone you talk to today says, I can't wait till things get back to normal. So we're kind of all understanding perhaps a little bit about what it's like when you're struggling with a mental health issue. So our plan today is to use this cooking therapy session to take a dish we don't love and at least make it edible, or maybe even just tolerable. I know that somebody who's struggling with depression, tolerable would be an amazing goal. And I do want to take a second and make sure that I don't minimize depression. So cooking therapy is a nice sort of break or maybe an adjunct to look at things in a different way, but it's no substitute for traditional talk therapy. And really, the best way to fight a mental health issue is with therapy and medication. So if you're someone who's in that state right now, I want to just share some numbers with you and know that what we're doing today maybe will help add a little lightness, maybe will help you look at things in a different way. But under no circumstances do we think this is going to cure clinical depression. So if you are struggling, I just want to hold this up, and I will hold it up again at the end of the session. Reach out for help. And for those of you who aren't familiar with mental health issues, please understand, it's not sadness, it's not the blues. It always makes me a little crazy when I hear people go, what's wrong with them? Why don't they just cheer up? I mean, if you think about if you have an issue with your lungs or if you have an issue with your heart, nobody would say, why don't they just breathe? Or why don't they just regulate it? Right? So they're really minimizing it adds to the stress of people struggling with a mental health issue. Okay, I'm off my pulpit now and we're gonna go right into the dish. So the first thing we do with this Tough Times tilapia is spray the pan, which I've already done, and make a combination of vegetables that I've chopped up. I want to say something about the chopping. Don't be perfect. The whole point of this cooking therapy session is to ease our stress. If you're sitting there chopping the things that we put in, you're trying to make them perfect, you're missing the point. In fact, make them imperfect. Let's all celebrate our imperfections a little bit, okay? It might make us feel better. So what have I chopped? In here, I have half a cup of green pepper, a cup of tomato, and a cup of onion. In the recipe, which will be available by a link, it really calls for leeks, not onion, which I love, not just in the recipe, but kind of for our session today, because leeks are sweet onions. So you don't really think of onions as being sweet. I don't know, maybe that's an oxymoron. I'm not sure. Sweet onions, you decide. But what's good for this recipe, it's kind of like both. Like we're not feeling that great, we're feeling a little sour or bitter, maybe we're crying a little, alone or not alone, but leeks are a little sweeter. So I mix them all together with a little garlic. And what's so nice about this is it's kind of springy and colorful, and it's going to be the base for our tough times tilapia. And think about that. Kind of like if you're the fish, but on the base, we're going to put the springy and light, colorful vegetables. And I'm going to do that just now. You can see me do that right on the pan that I've sprayed. And I spread it out. Hopefully you can see this. And I'm going to spread it out to fit the fish that I have. And then I just lay the fish down on top. Pretty simple. And we'll see if this actually does become a dish that we like better. So that's our base and our fish. And you know, I talk a lot about mindfulness in cooking therapy. So maybe you could take a minute and just look at it and just think about it. Don't think it's hokey, okay? Take a moment and just think about a layer of lightness, a layer of color, a layer of something springy just under you. So just look at it for a minute. You know, we rush through life so quickly. All those kind of cheesy, hokey sayings like stop and smell the berries, stop and smell the coffee. But why did it happen? Because, you know, we don't do it. So we take a minute to look at our dish and then we move on. Okay, so now we've taken a minute and we're ready to go to the next step. And I know, you know, if you're the person who I'm speaking to, you might not be that motivated to do anything. And it's okay if you don't do this recipe, if you just want to watch it and decide later. You know, sometimes it's hard just to go through the motions when we're feeling that way. I've worked in substance abuse treatment, and they have a famous saying called fake it till you make it. So really what I'm saying to you is when you decide you just maybe want to do something different, try this. Just kind of show up to do it. It may be miraculous, it may do nothing, but hey, at the end of the day, the worst thing is you'll have dinner, right? So we're moving on to our crust, and this is really fun. So the first part of our crust is about 1/2 cup of potato chips. I use baked, and what you have to do is kind of smash them. Okay, you gotta smash them down to crumbs like this. Believe it or not, it's strangely cathartic. When we're chopping, maybe we're chopping away something that someone said to us that made us feel bad. When we're smashing, maybe we're smashing some of that negative self-talk. We know that people who are struggling with mental health issues are always saying, what's wrong with me? Why did this happen to me? Why isn't that person going through this? This is a really good time to put all those negative thoughts into the potato chips bowl and smash the heck out of them, okay? Okay, so then with this, we add it, and we're going to add 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. You could use panko if you have that. And 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. I think you're getting the idea that we're gonna have a really delicious crust, right? But the important part about this step is what we put in next. Paprika. Why? Certainly for taste, but also it gives color. If you've been feeling lonely or sad, we know you probably feel like you're kind of living in black and white, right? Well, this exact step says add a little color, however you do it. Maybe you do it like me and you put on a pretty flowered, colorful dress. Maybe you chop up vegetables that are very colorful. And our next step, equally important, is cayenne pepper. Why? Very spicy. And again, if you've been dealing with sadness, if you're alone and feeling lonely, we know you could use a little bit of spice in your life. This calls for 1/4 teaspoon. I'm just gonna eyeball it. And now we mix this all up. As I'm doing that, let's talk for a minute about the word crust. It's kind of an interesting word. We feel crusty sometimes, right? Probably a lot of us are feeling crusty in quarantine. It's also, there's upper crust, right? Which we may not feel like we're upper crust, but actually it's a pretty good metaphor because coronavirus, as well as anxiety, depression, addiction, they really don't discriminate based on your zip code or your bank account, right? How else can we use the word crust? I think I just like it so much in this recipe because it's kind of a nod to the season before winter, because we're in late spring, whereas the vegetables under the fish are kind of like what's coming. They're the spring. So that's a little bit like depression. There are moments when you think and you hope that you will feel lighter, you will feel less wintry, right? We recently passed a church and there was a sign outside that said, "Hope is not canceled." So I think that's kind of a great thing with this fish dish. We're going to put the crust all on top. And we're going to press it in a little, maybe press with a little purpose, feeling like we can get rid of the winter and feel a little lighter and more comfortable. And now, just as we sprayed our pan so it wouldn't stick at the beginning, now I'm gonna just spray it a little. You could use some spray butter, you could pat it with butter. And just so it'll all kind of come together and stick together. And we're gonna take this and we're gonna put it in a 450 oven for just 20 minutes. Now, while we're waiting for our Tough Times tilapia to come out of the oven, I thought I'd take this time to introduce you to my new assistant. Some of you may have met her on Instagram, but I wanted to introduce her to you in person. Hopefully she'll be cooking with me for a very long time in the years to come. I'm gonna go get her. And here she is, my assistant, Danny Blake. And she comes with her own tools. This is why I hired her, clearly. Look how helpful she is. It's time to whisk, Danny. Okay, will be great. So thank you for meeting my assistant. Now we're gonna go get our fish. Right, Danny? Is it ready? Do you think? You know I always defer to you. Okay, let's go see. Just as my assistant knew, our Tough Times tilapia is ready. And here it is. Doesn't it look delicious with that crust? Well, I hope I've added a little bit of thought and a little bit of lightness to your day, maybe a little bit of comfort. There are many more recipes for cooking therapy on my website at cookyourselfhappy.com and a lot more pictures on my Instagram. But basically, before I leave you today, I want to ask you a favor. If you know someone who's alone or elderly, be kind, pick up the phone, give them a call. If you're the one who's alone, reach out. I told you that I would show you those numbers again. It's very important to me that you know there is help for any mental health issue. You don't have to suffer alone. And I wanted to remind you of something. I know that we know a lot of celebrities who've taken their own life. And a lot of people thought they had everything going on, right? They thought they had everything. Why would they do that? And many did. So once again, if you're dealing with clinical depression or anxiety, this is a physical ailment. Your brain is an organ, just like your heart, just like your lungs, just like your liver. Give yourself a break. And if you know someone who's struggling with an issue, call them. Be kind, reach out. And here are the numbers, once again, that you can call for more information. Okay? It was wonderful having my appointment with you today. Our time is up, but I do look forward to our next session. Have a wonderful, wonderful beginning to spring. I'm your Sue therapist, Debra Borden, wishing you a wonderful day.
For more information like this and free exclusive videos, podcasts, and downloads, please join us at Hive80.com, the #1 online community for health, wellness, and medicine.